The much-anticipated peace talks between Ukraine and Russia in Istanbul on May 15, 2025, began under a cloud of cautious optimism, but quickly unraveled into a diplomatic fiasco. Initially proposed by Russian President Vladimir Putin, the summit had been promoted as a pivotal opportunity to initiate dialogue aimed at de-escalating the ongoing war. However, hopes were quickly dashed when Putin opted not to attend in person, instead sending a lower-tier delegation composed largely of mid-ranking bureaucrats. This move was widely interpreted by both international observers and the Ukrainian side as a clear signal of disinterest in meaningful negotiation. In sharp contrast, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived at the talks with a full high-level delegation, prepared with proposals and diplomatic frameworks to address issues such as ceasefire logistics, prisoner exchanges, and territorial sovereignty. Zelensky's disappointment was immediate and public. He openly labeled the Russian delegation a sham, criticizing not only the lack of senior figures, but also the substance of their engagement. What followed was less a negotiation and more a spectacle of mutual recriminations, as the Russian representatives reportedly sidestepped concrete proposals and instead advanced vague or propagandistic talking points. Ukrainian officials grew increasingly frustrated by what they perceived as a deliberate attempt to derail the talks and erode international credibility for the peace process. Global actors, including U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, had worked behind the scenes to facilitate the talks and had pinned hopes on even incremental progress. Yet their efforts were undermined by the apparent disinterest from the Russian side and the absence of foundational trust. Erdoğan, who had played a key role in hosting and promoting the summit, was said to be visibly frustrated by the breakdown. By the end of the summit, there were no agreements signed, no joint declarations issued, and no plans for future talks confirmed. The summit's collapse not only deepened the diplomatic rift between the two nations, but also served as a grim reminder of just how far apart the parties remain, not only in terms of policy, but in basic willingness to engage. For Ukraine, the failed summit reaffirmed its belief that Russia is not serious about ending the war through peaceful means. For Russia, the optics allowed them to appear engaged on the world stage, while avoiding any substantial concessions. The international community is now left to reckon with a harsher reality that despite repeated overtures and mounting pressure, a diplomatic resolution remains frustratingly elusive, blocked by strategic posturing and a fundamental lack of trust.